come to Papa.
Welcome, everybody, to a very special edition of Come to Papa. I'm Tom Papa, and my guest today is the great Colin Quinn. We have moved heaven and earth to get Colin in here right away, because we need to talk to him about his amazing one-man show playing at the Barrow Street Theater right now through June 3rd, entitled Unconstitutional. I was lucky enough to be at the opening for the show last week, and you have to go see it immediately. In much the same vein as his Broadway show, Long Story Short, Colin has taken a gigantic subject and boiled it down to the perfect comedic size for the rest of us. And to me, that is the amazing thing about this show. Yes, it is smart. Yes, it is current. But more than that, it is so damn funny. Really, I've seen so many hour specials. I rank this up there with even Keith Robinson's.
Oh.
Tickets are available at colinquinnonconstitutional.com. You've got to see it. It's at the Barrow Street Theater. It's an amazing space downtown in the Village. Colin, thank you for being here. I feel like you have now taken and become like Nathan Lane status.
Yeah.
Where you've stepped away from the comedy clubs and now you have a theater air about you.
Well, Tom, I don't look at it that way, but I certainly will never sully myself by being part of any of the soiled comedy clubs in this United States again. For too long, they've destroyed my creativity, my incentive, my financial status in the community.
Yeah, I really do. I joke, but at the same time, I'm dead serious. When you see your show, which I saw last Thursday night, you're like, this is where he should be. This stuff should not be told in front of 18-year-old kids trying to just make out with their girlfriend and they don't know who's on stage. To be in a theater with people, there's no drinks being served. It's all smart people. The focus is purely on you, and you get to really immerse yourself in the show, which doesn't happen in a comedy club.
No, because like you said, well, first of all, even when I did Long Story Short on Broadway, they were serving drinks. People were getting up and going to get Jell-O shots during the show. This is what Broadway's become.
On Broadway?
Jell-O shots they were selling in the lobby. They thought that was cute.
Oh,
it's like, guess what, producers? I don't find it funny. People getting drunk when I'm trying to do a show.
It's true. I saw Book of Mormon, and at the break, they literally stand there with T-shirts and stuff in the aisle.
But this was not at the break. I'm saying while I'm on stage, people are allowed to get up, walk to the back, go pee, which that's fine with me.
Right.
But then they're getting Jell-O shots too. They're drinking and coming back with their shots. One time, a guy up front was actually in the front row on Broadway, was drinking and chewing the ice and throwing me off. And I swear to God, I just looked down at him and I was just going to rip into him. And I looked down and he was the biggest, baddest. He must have been like an MMA guy that somebody got a ticket. He just looked up at me like, you have something to say? And I just kept on with the show. I was like, you big monster, if I was the size, I'd break your face.
Are you allowed to go off book and start playing with the audience?
Yeah, because, you
Broadway?
are. I mean, you have to be careful. You don't want to ruin the whole vibe.
But there isn't a thing like you've got to stick to the script on
No,
Broadway.
because there's nobody else you have to worry about. It's not like a play where if one line is messed up, everybody in the play gets screwed.
Right.
You can screw around.
Why don't you want to bring this one to Broadway?
Well, I don't know. I just didn't. I mean, I don't really care. I think Broadway's great for like musicals and like big plays, but you know what I mean? It's a one-man show. I would bring it if somebody brought big bags of money, but otherwise, you can't make that much money.
Right.
Because you got to pay off. Broadway plays make money as they go on for years.
Right.
Or as they go on the road companies.
Right.
But just any original cast, unless you get paid a lot up front, nobody's going to make money. I didn't make money off that show.
How did the defending caveman guy make money?
He went on the road for years. But
really?
He wasn't doing Broadway. He did Broadway after he was already made the money.
Oh, so he toured that show forever?
He toured that show, and what he did, which was smart, or at least the legend has it, was he was the guy that marketed his manager or him. Mm-hmm. I think his manager was that guy Robin that used to run Catch years ago.
Right.
They went to, allegedly, they went to all the couples counselors all over the country. Every city they go into a month early, they'd go, hey, we'd like to invite you to a free show for you and your guest. So all the couples counselors would go. They'd see the show and go, this is what I deal with every day. And then they'd tell their people coming to therapy, hey, if you want to do something as a couple, you guys need to go out as a couple. I got a good idea, but show there's a difference between men and women.
Right.
Go see this.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
So they would go in and market the thing before you even got to
That's
town.
the word. But either way, even if it's not true, it's brilliant.
And then he toured it like that forever, and then they decided to put it on Broadway.
Yeah, that was on Broadway years after.
Oh.
No, yeah. And I'm sure they made some money on Broadway, but
Right.
like I said, it's just from constant touring the same thing.
Now, when you do your show, so much goes into it. You've been writing it for what, a year and a half?
A year. Just
a year?
Well, 10 and a half months.
Wow, less than a year.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's such a tight set.
Thanks. Well, I've been working like a beast on it, too.
Yeah. Now, are you writing it the same way? Like when I would see Carlin was writing his stuff almost like a script. He was writing his material, his stand-up stuff. And I remember seeing him back at the Comedy Magic Club, and he had his stuff, and he was literally memorizing paragraph by paragraph, and then going up and doing it. And I thought, well, that's kind of a weird way. I've never seen someone do a set like that.
No.
You didn't do that for this show?
No, I can't memorize like that.
Right. So you just would work it like a stand-up set.
Yeah, work like saying work at the cellar sometimes.
Right.
And every time something works like at the cellar, I would get excited because I'm like, wow, if stuff can work in stand-up clubs,
right,
and it's not stand-up stuff, but then you feel good.
Right. So you don't treat it like, oh, I'm doing a one-man show. You just treat it like, is there any difference between?
I treat it like that it's thematic. Because stand-up clubs, the crowd, even after 5 minutes of talking about any subject, I don't care what it is,
right?
Unless it's sex, then you can talk an hour. They're looking at you like, come on, change the subject.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
That's
course.
it.
Of any subject.
Any subject except sex.
Yeah.
They could listen in 5 hours. But I mean,
right.
So any other subject, they're like, come on, move on now. This is the way stand-up is. You go
right.
from here to here to here. So this is like, no, this is the same subject.
What made you decide to do the Constitution?
Because all my life, or at least the past few years, everyone says the Constitution is brilliant. And I was like, why? What's so brilliant about it?
Right.
Well, I don't get it. What's so brilliant? Founding fathers are geniuses. I was like, what? What's so great about it? So then I read it, and I was still sort of understood a little bit, but then I was like, let me figure this out,
Right.
And so that's what.
Are you impressed by it now?
Yes, I am. I'm impressed by the Founding Fathers. I'm impressed by the Constitution.
You are?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they basically said, look, here's the way a society works. Just because you think these people are wrong, you want to be part of the society with them, too bad. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
what's happening in our country right now. Too bad if we don't like Texas and they don't like us. If you guys want to be together, you're going to have to learn to deal with it or break up.
Right.
Too bad that you don't like their values or we don't like your values. I mean, obviously it causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But when you consider a history of 230 years, the amount of pogrom, genocide, the stuff that happens in a lot of other countries when people don't get along doesn't happen here.
Right.
Yet. And I know, but either way, it's never happened so far. So that means they were doing something. They understand that balance of power. They understand everybody will abuse power. They knew they would.
Right.
They knew everybody would.
Do you think that, are you impressed by the human rights aspect of it all? That
I want my human right.
You're what?
That's from Scarface. I want my human right. Like your President Jimmy Carter said.
Does that because you're talking about it more as almost as a state preservation, but do you see it as an individual?
No, I mean it goes all the way down.
Yeah,
it's not just a state preservation; it's down to the individual. That's what the Bill of Rights was, really.
And was there a thing about slavery in it originally, and they pulled it out?
No.
Was that in the Declaration of Independence?
No, slavery was, like I said, the Founding Fathers. The North was getting rid of slavery. That was their whole mission statement.
Right.
They went down there, they were going to get rid of it, and then they sold it out for a couple of reasons. But I mean, tobacco being one probably, but also because they said, look, it's more important that we get together. We'll put it on put a pin in it. Sorry, brother, it's bad. And so they said 1808 was you could stop importation of slaves, and then the 3/5 compromise people always talk about, but it had nothing to do with slavery other than slaves were only counted as 3/5 of a person. Which the South wanted. The North didn't want to count them at all because of voting. It was just a voting thing. But it was really...
That was the motivation for this?
The sellout was the Fugitive Slave Clause. That was the other thing. 1808 was they said no more importation of slaves. So you could still have slaves. This was all because the South was like, we're walking away. We're out.
And why did the North want it out?
Want slavery out?
Yeah.
You mean just humanity? They didn't have slaves.
So it wasn't an economic thing. It was just...
No, it wasn't economic at all.
Oh.
It was not... No, not everything was economic. Everybody always thinks the Founding Fathers oh, they're all like the white slave man,
Right.
like they're all just about themselves. But then I read all these boring, incredibly tedious books written like in 1930 about it,
Right.
and you realize no, most of their motives were not. They came into the thing in debt. Most of them died without that much money.
Right.
So I mean, it wasn't all evil, but
Right. So there was a real, because you do get that rap that, well, it was just economic and white people didn't really want to end slavery. You hear
right?
that?
No, they all wanted to end. All the North wanted to end slavery.
Yeah. Do you feel like we should have kept slavery?
Tom, it's funny. I was just thinking about that coming down on the A train. And no, I mean, slavery is one of the two things that screwed up was the big ones, in my opinion, is slavery.
Yeah.
And then this guy, Governor Morris. This guy, when they were trying to decide about the Senate, separation of powers, he's like, look, he was very rich, really rich. And actually, Morris Park in the Bronx is named after him. Shows how much money, how he's fallen.
Was he from New York?
He was in New York. And he said, look, here's what you do. The Senate should be made up of all rich people, all the richest people in the country.
Uh-huh.
The richest people. And the rest of them like, what? He goes, listen to me. I know I'm rich. He goes, these people are going to do what they're going to do anyway. This way you're saying, you're acknowledging that they're at odds with the people.
Right.
By making them the Senate and the people's representatives, supposedly the House of Reps.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, that's too cynical. What are you talking? But that would have been, and especially in light of the past 20, 40 years, whatever, that would have been the perfect thing because then everything's out in the open and you're saying, okay, this is a conflict.
Right.
You're acknowledging there's a conflict.
Just a class conflict.
Well, a financial conflict in the sense that now people are like, no, business, it's like, it's muddied. So you're like, wait, but they develop job, but they create job. Instead of saying, wait, there's going to be a conflict when people get really rich.
Right.
There has to be.
Right.
He understood that, and nobody else seemed to understand that in the whole thing. They're just like, you're being cynical. This guy's like crazy.
Right.
He must have he was the guy. He's also the guy.
Doesn't it exist like that now?
Yes. No, but
you're saying it's not, it's kind of opaque now.
It's murky because nobody says that. Or people say it, but nobody really, there's no system set up where that's going to be a conflict.
Right.
So you have to deal with it with law. Yeah, you have to deal with it legally and ideologically in your head.
Right.
But also this guy, Governor Morris, who's apparently the great hero of the Constitution, subtly to me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, me being in the last 5 minutes, but he also was the guy that wrote it. Like the way it's set up, all those things were in the. By the way, to any reviewers who said I had it out of order, no, the order I had it in order. They discussed slavery and judicial and the other stuff. They put the order later with Article 1. That was Governor Morris. He organized it all.
Oh, yeah.
So all that stuff was not that in the order they discussed. They didn't discuss Article 1 first, Article 2 second, Article 3 third.
Oh, I see.
They did it the way I said it was done, and then they put it in order at the end.
Why did some critics say he was
some said, well, he's all over the place. Obviously, he says Article 2, then he goes back to Article 1. Why don't you read it and see what I'm saying? That infuriated me, only because of the work I did, God forbid, I do one bit of work, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
It's
like full acknowledgement.
Now, you didn't tour this around. This was all in New York, right?
Creek and Cave.
The Creek and Cave.
Yeah.
Just
I
went
worked
there.
it out for a year, Creek and Cave.
Wow.
And then played with it a little bit, a couple of road gigs, Just played with some of it. But, halfway through, I'd usually either abandon it. Some places it worked, but
yeah,
I'd abandon, go back into stand-up. I did a lot. I'm doing stand-up dates. 3 weeks ago, I was in Atlanta. I mean, I can't do the show there.
Yeah.
I can't do the show anywhere as far as it's not a stand-up show.
No, it's not. And even like you're not heavy on visuals in the show.
Right.
But it helps.
Yes.
When you're dealing with a subject that big.
Yes.
Even you just changing location on stage, the blocking, and a couple of the visuals that come up, for a long subject, you kind of need those things.
You need it. And it just reminds people, good, this is this,
Right, right.
But, yeah, I mean, I love doing it. I love, because I love stand-up. Like, honestly,
yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, my God, you're the only one that could do this. No, I'm not. Any stand-up that's been doing it for a while, that's good, can do anything. My opinion.
Right.
Is any stand-up it's a pain in the ass, and it's also, it's hard to get the time to do it. I happen to have the time, you know what I mean?
Work.
But I'm saying, any stand-up that took one subject
right.
could do it now. Any good stand-up, I know they could.
Yeah.
Just because I know them.
What subject do you think I should do?
I think you should do, not a historical subject necessarily, but if you did do a subject, it would have to do with being a man in today's society, which your act has that theme anyway.
Right.
And it would have to be being married and some kind of it would have to be related. You'd have to find something that related to it, whether it be an energy in the world or the conflict of being,
the rise of woman against man.
Well, I don't think it's the rise of woman against man, but it's almost be like the psychological reckoning
Right.
that you have to deal with. Where you're like, okay, this is me now. Even the title, "This Is Me Now."
Right.
Because you have to have a complete transformation, I would assume.
Right.
Where you're like, okay, this is me now. You have to, at some point, unless you're going to be a dickhead who's not really a good father and husband, you have to say, "This is me now."
Yeah.
Or, like the guys that are still like, "Hey, I'm the," they're still wearing like skull shirts in their
Right.
late 30s, and they're like, "I'm still crazy," And, like they don't want to acknowledge that they're now.
They want to be a rocker dad.
Yeah, there's something about the identity that you have to say, I have to change my identity for the sake of this to work.
Right.
I have to,
Yeah.
shift into another part of myself
Right.
that nobody even knows that exists until they do that. And that kind of stuff is interesting.
Right.
But I mean, that being said, like I say, any of these anybody who talks about any subject, it better be joke.
Right.
Or else we're not staying. You don't, like if I went up there and people like, that was really interesting about the Constitution, I'd be embarrassed.
Right.
When I was working on it, somebody came up after a show and gave me the greatest insult any comedian could have. He goes, "Hey man, you gave me a lot to think about there." And I was like, "Oh," because we want laughs,
I know.
For good reason.
I know. Well, that's what was really so great about this show. And I can't compare it to Long Story Short because that was dense with laughs too. But I only saw it a couple times, so I don't really remember it as much as I do this one, of course. But this one is this is a killer. If you were to go to any comedy club or any HBO special or anything, it's packed with not just laughs, good, poignant laughs.
But Tom, as much as I appreciate that, we just got through for 20 minutes saying it wouldn't work in a comedy club. And now you just said, if you go to any comedy club with this.
No, I'm saying you could hold it up against anybody else's hour in a comedy club.
Thanks.
Because.
No, it's got laughs.
Yeah.
But like you said, I worked on it a lot. I mean, I was sitting there every night going to Creek and Cave, working it out with Rebecca, she's a director, and we sat there every night. And I was just working it with these stupid sheets of paper, which I still have plenty of.
You bring them on stage with you?
But that's a funny thing. You work on something, for the first 6 months I brought them on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the funny thing about these kinds of shows is once you're done with it, like everyone's like, "Wow, what do you want to do now?" It's like, I want to never see it again. I want to never talk about the Constitution again.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. You just want to film it and get it out of there.
Yeah.
Move on to something else.
Is that going to be the plan? Will you film it?
I would like to do that.
Yeah.
My other plan I'd like to do another show, but I don't think I could pull it off. I'd like to do a show that's basically about a combination of pressure point kill techniques and like, those energy chi guys. I once went to see this Japanese chi guy.
Yeah.
He was only in from Detroit for the day. And he said, jump on top. There's like 50 people in the class. He picks me. I was a little heavier at the time. And he goes, climb on top of me and just, don't let me go. Like put me in like a wrestling hold.
Yeah.
I jump on top. I grab the guy. Next thing I'm on the other side of the room. He goes, do it again. I did it again. I still don't remember to this day how that happened, how I ended up on the other. But everyone in the class, I go, laughing, And I'd like to do a show where I research that and the pressure point thing, not just for the entertainment value. At the end of the show, I want to be able to fling like 20 people across the room.
Yes.
It's really, this whole comedy thing is a sham, ultimately. If I could have just been like one of those mad, killer monk. Like a killer monk that can kill people with pressure points. What guy wouldn't want that?
I would love that. Because
great.
It's but the problem is it seems so easy. I think the appeal to me, at least, is that for one little, you just have to take two fingers and you completely control this other human being.
Yeah.
But it seems like it would be easy to learn that. But it's actually years and years of stuff
it's years,
to be able
and
to
even
do that.
then, some guy's 6'8", 240, and he just pushes you and drops you with a hand. You're like, oh my God. You know what I mean?
Can't
Like,
we reach his point?
that's the other problem.
Right.
Or some guy who's even smaller than you just catches a lucky punch, catches in the right place, and you get dropped, and suddenly you're on the ground flopping like a fish. And everyone's like, what happened to the great master that we studied with for years?
Now, why end it June 3rd? Why not do you want to go
It
further
may
with
get
it?
extended, but there's another show coming in. So
Right.
you got to, they're ready.
They're coming in. You got
they're
to
in.
pack your bags and go.
Yeah.
I want people to see this.
Well, they can see it it's being shot.
It is being shot? You said you didn't know if it was being shot.
I know, I'm lying, but maybe it'll be shot.
You're listening to Come to Papa. I'm here with the great Colin Quinn, and you have to go see his show, Unconstitutional, playing at the Barrow Street Theater.
It's a nice place to stroll.
It really is. It's a perfect block.
Yes.
It's an amazing
It looks like
show.
Constitutional Convention Hall.
It really does. And that wasn't even your set.
No, it was a set from Stonewall, which closed, and then we left it up there because we didn't have money for a set anyway.
How about that awful story? Speaking of Stonewall, that awful story on 8th Street.
Oh, God. Sickening.
Just shot a guy for being gay.
Yeah.
Right in front of the Barnes & Nobles and Grace Papaya.
Right.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Just awful.
Sick.
Terrible. Well, sorry to bring down the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's been a couple of murders like that around there,
What do you mean, recently?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, a couple of gay bashings. There was one by right outside the Knicks game, these guys, and on 32nd Street. And
Really?
else. Yeah, there's been a few incidences the past few weeks.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I wish I was gay.
Yeah.
It just makes things easier.
I wish I was
And
a
then more
pressure
difficult
point
at the
champ.
same
Well,
time.
gay, here's the thing about the gay and lesbian thing. I figured this out a while ago, but is that they both act, the reason people are a little freaked out by it is they both act the way men and women really act in their true natures.
Uh-huh.
The lesbians get together, they start nesting, they start buying things, they do all the things that women fantasize men will do, carpentry and sitting around talking and, you know what I mean? Just
Right.
going out for little strolls to pick up a bowl. And then gay guys do what we would all do with women if they would go along with the program, which is meet me. You see somebody in the supermarket, let's go in the back. Hey, let's go in the bushes. That's what we would all be doing all day.
Right.
They're just guys.
Right.
So they're doing what guys would do.
So it just frustrates. And speaking of male body image, you've lost a lot of weight for this show.
Well,
how do
thanks, Tom.
You really dial it in when you have a show coming up.
I do dial it in because I look at myself. My problem is that I look at myself and I'm always like, yeah, you look pretty good. And then I see a picture of myself. I go, you're fat. You're fat. And then
It's true. Why does everyone say you look good? You can't listen to anybody.
No, I'm saying even I think I look good in the mirror.
Oh, even you? Oh, really?
But then when I see a picture, like somebody takes a picture of me, I'm like, you're fat. But in the mirror, for some reason, I look good. Maybe I need
Maybe you
bigger
need
bulbs.
or a fat mirror. Some mirrors, you ever go to a hotel and you get the skinny mirrors?
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I look really good.
Yeah.
I love this hotel.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to always watch it because nobody cares. That's why. Nobody cares the kind of shape you're in. They don't care. They look at you the way they want to look at you. Like, who cares about you? You're finished anyway. But you still want to think you look good, especially when you're on stage. You feel good. Your clothes fit right, and it does give you energy, more energy when you're feeling fat and when you're looking fat. You feel like your breath is a little off. You feel like your nose is stuffed on stage.
Right.
You're going through the airport with your bags. You're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're thin, you can delude yourself. Hey, I'm kind of young still, and I'm in pretty good shape for my age. You look at some other guy. You're like, that guy's younger than me. He looks horrible. It's really about survival. Is really about denigrating others, denigrating strangers,
So you can
setting up a fake miserable life for them, so you can feel good about yourself.
Are you going to yoga?
No, but I went to yoga once this year, and I swear to God, I can't believe I haven't gone back every day.
It's ridiculous.
I was high like a beast.
I know.
What's wrong with me, man? I should be going all the time.
I know. It's the best thing in the world to do.
It's just everything else.
It's hard to do it in New York. You know what I think it is?
There's a million yoga places
I
here.
know, but I think it's just dirtier, and you're walking with your mat through the streets, and
I know. For a guy walking around with a yoga mat, it's a little tough.
it is.
But you know what? You get one of those army pouches. You know what I mean? Like it's like an arrow pouch what they used to carry.
Yeah.
And then they don't know what's in there. They go, oh, this guy could have like heavy weaponry. It could be, it almost looks like an RPG could be in there.
Right.
And then you feel good and they don't have to know it's a purple yoga mat.
So, Colin, I feel selfishly like you should be the guy that every 2 years comes out with another Broadway show, and then I get to go see it. And it's
Well, what about off
great
Broadway? Why does it have to be on Broadway?
well, I just say Broadway.
Hey, man.
I just mean theater.
Man, the parameters, man. It's really not about that. Yeah, no, I have, like I said, my dream, I'm not even kidding when I say my dream would be to do a Pressure Point show. And
You're not kidding?
No, I would love to do that, but I'm not going to do that. But that would be a good show. But I was thinking of doing what's the most important thing? What's the most amazing? What about inventions? And I'm talking about real inventions. I'm talking about like electricity. The whole story of Tesla, Edison.
Right.
This kind of stuff is really interesting.
Right.
And if that meant something in the grand scheme of things, like beyond the invention itself, does it represent everything since history becomes, like I say, well, there's always like the nerdy guy that invents it. Yeah. Then did he get it stolen?
Right.
And then did Edison get it stolen from him? And like it's like whoever invented the car, there's some English guy, and then suddenly Henry Ford is like the guy. So like that kind of dynamic is interesting to me too. Right. How people take ideas,
once
like,
it becomes part of the culture,
everybody
starts devouring it.
I mean, it's amazing. Like I don't know, all the way to Bill Gates. Bill Gates and Steve Wozniak and those guys, like they didn't invent all that stuff, but like what level of invention is it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because when I used to try to do a routine years ago about the fact that, whoever invents the ShamWow makes, is worth $100 million, whatever.
Right.
All these inventions. And then the guy that invented pizza doesn't make a dime. Nobody knows who he is. And pizza is worldwide and everyone loves it. So I'm just saying those are extreme examples.
Right.
But I mean.
Yeah, it's true. At a certain point, you're putting it, then like when Steve Jobs checked out the tablet, someone else was working on the tablet. He's like, this isn't a tablet. We can make a tablet.
Right.
And it's like, there's no problem with that. You can just take the tablet idea
right.
and make the iPad and make $1 zillion off of it.
Yes. That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
So I guess really my next show is about corporate espionage, starting in the first century.
From ice cream to Dippin' Dots.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I like that kind of stuff too. But but you can tell like even that is dry compared to pressure points and throwing people across the room with just your energy.
Well, why not you could have a show about inventions, but then you break in the middle. You're just like, now pressure points. And you just go into some pressure point fling and then back to electricity.
Well, but that's not a bad idea. I set up like dummies of like Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, and I'm like, and these idiots stole that idea. Then I do like pressure points on the dummies. So people get like a cathartic experience from theater watching me elbow smash Henry Ford and his temple. And if I could really get money, if I really had big money, I'd make it so that each area you hit them, the dummy would do the exact thing that a person would do if you smash him in that area. So if you smash him in the temple, it would the wire would be set up so his legs would collapse. So
you're actually creating an invention in the invention show.
Right.
And then people steal it, and then you go to Broadway, and everyone in The Lion King is
I've had a lot of
robotic.
I have had a lot of good inventions.
You have?
Yeah.
Like what?
I've thought of many inventions in my life. Most of them are actually very lazy things about not getting out of bed and just reaching with these long like prongs to get stuff. That was one of my early days. I didn't want to get out of bed when I was like 8.
How can I get my tissue box?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, if you had a prong, like, it all started when I worked at the supermarket. I saw, those forceps they have at the supermarket.
This is just like what you're talking about with your show, though. You didn't invent it. You saw the guys at the supermarket, and now you're home thinking, if I have this invention,
I'll give you some real examples then. What about this? Say this is back, especially nowadays when smoking is forbidden everywhere. Let's say you're in a car driving in Minnesota. It's very cold. It's winter. And you want to have a cigarette. And the other people in the car don't want you to smoke. It always causes a conflict. So, more so in the old days, but people smoke. But there's still a lot of smokers in Michigan.
Yeah.
Michigan people smoke like beasts, believe me.
Right.
The whole state smokes. So, it was like a gas mask where you put the cigarette in the gas mask, and then it's got a tube that you just have to crack the window open slightly, and the tube goes out there, and the smoke goes right out the window.
It's the worst invention I've ever heard.
The worst invention ever?
Yeah.
Well, I have more. That was an early one.
Because the good thing about smoking cigarettes, you're kind of free, and you're out in the open, and you're holding it. And
but this is better. You don't even have to hold the cigarette.
Now you're in a gas mask while you're driving a car.
No, you're not driving. You're the passenger.
What else did you
and you don't have to hold the cigarette. You can text while you're smoking.
But you can't even see it through your...
What do you mean? No, the gas mask only goes up to the nose, mid-nose.
Like a sleep apnea thing?
Yeah, it's not a full mask on your eyes, Tom.
It's a terrible idea.
I don't know. I'll bring that on Shark Tank. Let's see what they have to say about it.
I don't like on Shark Tank anytime you want to make it in the U.S., they say, it'll never work. You're out of here.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Oh, you're right. It's brutal. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
But it is the truth,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really scary when you think about what
Yeah, you're not allowed to make things.
you're not allowed to make things
You
here,
have to
and
make
it's
them in
accepted,
Bangladesh.
and nobody's afraid to say it. That's
Right.
what's scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
They're just saying, no, that's it. That's a given.
I was just driving through upstate New York and Massachusetts, and it's just town after town of abandoned factories.
Yeah.
And the towns are crummy now too. And you
Yes.
can tell, this was one time that factory was cranking out pots, and
Yeah.
these people were making the pots, and people were going to schools, and now it's a ghost land.
Yeah, and people were, and it was, as corny as it sounds, the backbone of America.
Yeah,
It set a psychological. There was talk about energy.
yeah.
Maybe my show really will
Right.
be about energy.
Energy.
Because,
Yeah.
well, I mean, that's what I meant by saying people throwing each other. I just wanted the energy to somehow transfer into my hands, into a killer's hands. But
yeah, but on a bigger scale.
on a bigger scale, energy is really important. And the
Yeah.
energy of this country, all these small towns are gone. You're right.
Yeah.
And even big cities. I mean, I've been to the two biggest examples, Erie, Pennsylvania, Springfield, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
I'm talking about a half mile each one of these abandoned factories, giant factories.
Yeah, that were
and
cranking.
mills that were cranking, and they're both totally empty. There's not even security guards there anymore. They're
Yeah.
just empty, and there's miles of them.
I know.
And Detroit, of course, is the greatest example.
And there was a pride in the people that you actually had a purpose.
Right, of
and-
course.
And you're
Now you're
part of
just
the
sitting there like an
community.
idiot, yeah.
And now everyone's just kind of wandering around.
Yeah.
Just
And even if you have a job, it's like guys want to work in some job like that. They don't want to be working in the local little store. I mean, they'll do
Yeah.
it, but it's like,
yeah.
but what do you do? Once technology
Yeah,
starts
how-
to advance, what do you do?
Yeah,
It's
how-
not just foreign.
But what do you do? I mean, things are still being manufactured, but they're
But this is what I'm saying. We have a whole system in place that doesn't, nobody sits down and goes, hey guys, we have a problem. Let's sit down as a country and try to figure it out. Let's sit down as a country. Instead of saying, oh, it's this fault, it's that. Nobody ever sits down at these, hey, what about this? A constitutional convention every couple of years. And you
Right.
bring in all the business leaders too. And this is all on C-SPAN. We go, what do we do about this?
right.
You guys want to make money. We want people to have jobs. What do we do? And have
Right.
everybody discuss it. But that'll never happen.
Yeah, it's
People
unfortunate.
do it to a degree, but
It's really
not in public.
even like when you have these big tragedies that happen and everybody.
Like Oklahoma City.
Yeah, or
It was
yeah.
brutal.
Oh man, massive.
Jesus. Imagine you just living your life,
Yeah.
some little place. You
And
think
just
you-
the
some of
wind
your
blows
kids are
through.
dead. Yeah.
Good Lord. But whenever there's something big happens and you think, oh, okay, now we're going to sit down and talk and really come up with a solution. And it's like the two parties are like, I feel like we're the children of alcoholic parents.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we're going to take care of you. And then they just take out each other and they manipulate each other and then nothing happens and they go back to drinking and
Right.
alone.
But even if they didn't, I'm saying it's bigger than them now. It
Yeah.
needs the Constitutional Convention needs also all the business, all the shapers of the people that
Yeah.
all the business people.
Yeah.
You need this all together. But like you said, it's a good example.
But can you, is there a solution to, I mean, we've moved into this technological future
Right.
and you see these small towns in Ohio and
Right.
New York. Is there hope? What could you do for those? You're never going to go back to a manufacturing society like
Right.
that. So what?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what these big constitutional conventions would be about.
I know, but you studied the Constitution. You have a show about it.
But the Constitution, but I didn't study the economy of the United States, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, but you're smart. You can figure it out.
I can't talk about the Rust Belt, and it ended in 1975, really.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, we became our whole economy now is based on this kind of non-existent like financials and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and service.
The only thing we could do probably would be if you had somebody like me in charge. I'd be I mean, if you look at the most effective people in history,
Uh-huh.
we're talking about Joseph Stalin, a great leader, very underrated man.
Mussolini.
Mussolini, what's his name? Pol Pot.
What's his name? Like he's the guy at the deli.
Yes, genocidaires, a very important part of society.
So
Actually, you know who they said was really smart was that what's his name? Milosevic, that guy from Serbia that was the evil.
Oh yeah,
They said he was smart.
really?
They said he played it so cool when the UN and all those people came in. He didn't play it like any other dictator. He's like, hey, guys were trying to. He kept it like semi-open. Even though he was doing his heinous things.
Jeez.
And he always dealt with them. He's like, he tried to make himself the victim, and he got away with a lot of stuff for a couple of years.
Wow.
While he's doing these horrible, genocide. And
that's the scariest thing when
you know how to play it.
When super smart people are evil.
But I'll tell you who's good. The guy in Indonesia before Suharto named Sukarno. This guy was good. He was a benevolent dictator. He lived in a little house. He gave the people stuff, but he still was a benevolent. He still had a iron fist when you need it. Sometimes you need it. But his problem was he let his family and his friends, they all started exploiting the system and robbing.
Oh,
He
really?
was like a down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
Didn't take anything. But he spoiled his family and friends, and they robbed the place and became these despots.
That's what happened to MC Hammer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You listen
right.
to Come to Pop on Sirius XM 99. I'm here with the great Colin Quinn, and we're doing a special show because he has an off-Broadway show called Unconstitutional. It's running at the Barrow Street Theater in downtown Manhattan on Barrow Street. Perfect theater, perfect spot. It's a hilarious show. I saw it. Every comedian that came out of there was like, I can't believe he even did better than his last show. And you can get tickets at colinquinnunconstitutional.com. It's an amazing show. How much research do you do when you're going to tackle a subject like this? Do you read a lot before you start getting into it?
First of all, before
do you
we
just
answer
kind
that
of-
question, let's go back to one more statement where you go perfect theater, and then the whole time here you've been busting my balls. Why don't you move it to Broadway?
I'm not
It's at a
saying
perfect
move it to
theater
Broadway
right now.
You're right.
Woo!
You are right. But there is that thing, and I guess we're all. It's like when you see somebody and you're like, why aren't you making movies? You always figure like they should do the big splashy thing.
I know, but meanwhile,
But
it's
you
like,
to be honest, I also brought it up because I know, because we're friends, that you didn't like Broadway, and I was hoping it was going to lead to you talking about why Broadway blows.
trashing Broadway. No, Broadway's great if you're Christian Chenoweth or somebody like that. It's not my dream,
Right.
But I mean, I've been there a couple of times, and honestly, if it had been my dream, I would have been petrified to do it. Thank God I didn't care about Broadway. So both times I did, I was like, hey, Broadway, but I don't even think in terms, I just think in terms of it's the theater.
Right.
Like I was like that off Broadway, like the public theater.
Right.
And,
Yeah, so it wasn't a big deal to you.
right, it wasn't like, oh, Broadway, or else I would have been scared. I would have been horrified.
Right.
You know what I mean? Who are you to come on Broadway by yourself?
Yeah.
But I didn't think about it in Broadway terms.
Right. Well, that's
Thank
good.
God,
Yeah.
But,
But
I do a lot of research.
Do you do?
Well, I mean, because of Google, research is a little bit slippery now. But, you research, you just keep reading. Like, I keep reading these Constitution books, and then it's torture to read them,
Yeah.
Because they're
it's
written
gotta
in
be
that
hard.
old language, and it's just, boring.
Right.
They're from a time when you didn't have any choice, and you just have to read,
Right.
And but then your consciousness, you try to go, wait a minute, but you try to put yourself in their shoes. Like, what was the angle? Why were they saying this?
Right.
Why were they doing this? And it's like, yeah, it's not to be England is a big one. To not be like England. Like the psychological motivations behind everything.
Yeah.
It's like, why are
Right.
you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why would they say this? And so it all makes sense, and that it's behind.
That's a great angle, just because I still have like a school kid way of looking at history, where I think of these people as bigger, older, more archaic, and then you realize from watching your show, it's like they're just guys.
Right.
They're just human beings, just like
Yeah. And
like-
about
like
probably,
we are.
probably 12 of them were geniuses.
Yeah.
And the other guys are just like local successful guys that are sitting there going, "Oh my God, I'm out of my league with these geniuses, and I'm trying to get my thing in. I can't go back to my state." And they'll go, "You coward! You didn't even get us anything." So you have to like be forceful, but at the same time, you're in the room with Ben Franklin and Madison. You have to be like,
Were you more impressed after studying about all this stuff? Or were you impressed by this kind of a stroke of luck that all these great minds actually did get together? Was there something special about that moment with these guys? When you say there's like 12 geniuses, that's a lot of geniuses.
Yes. No, I mean, it was definitely, I think it was also brought out because the British brought it out in them by the oppression and the fact that they didn't notice it was 100 years into the country already, 150 years already.
Right.
And they didn't notice like, hey, it happens all it's part of the new show about energy. Because you don't notice you're building up, just when like, let's take stand-up comedy, the only thing I actually know anything about, sadly. Well, like while you're sitting there going, stand up, it's kind of petered off. And suddenly the past 6 years, boom, all these funny young comics.
Right.
That you're like, wow. I thought all the material was covered.
Right.
I didn't think anybody could be coming up with this much new material.
Right.
I thought you'd come up with some new stuff, technological stuff.
Right.
But psychological stuff too. And you're watching all these people working.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh. You know, and
Still
it's
happening.
the same thing. It's like England thought they had it locked. They had this brilliant society. They came up with all these brilliant people. And they're like, yeah. And then suddenly this like America, they're not. And then holy crap, then we had a whole literature thing in the 1800s. I mean, it was a lot going on. All the inventions, the car, the plane, the tractor, the chicken wire. I mean, it was like all this stuff that really was effective.
Yeah.
For my invention show, you know.
Did you
electricity?
Did anyone emerge as the most impressive to you out of that time? Was it Ben Franklin or
Ben
Madison?
Franklin was pretty amazing. Ben Franklin was like amazing.
Why was he so amazing?
Just because he was like on the on the one hand, he always had he was always writing he wrote all these new words for the dictionary.
Right.
And then he's always inventing things. And then he's political the entire time, and he's like a statesman.
Right.
And at the same time, he's a pervert. And he's always like at sex clubs.
Was he?
He's drunk the whole time. It's like, who was this guy at the end? He was 82 at the convention.
Jeez.
He was like the oldest guy, and was doing it all.
He was 82 at the convention.
He was 82 at that convention. He was like the old guy. But it's like this guy did it all. Like his whole life, he was a pervert and a drunk
That's awesome.
and an inventor and a statesman.
God.
I mean,
I saw an interesting thing that he used to do with his writing. Did you ever hear this? He would write to exercise, to get out of just this, make sure that he wasn't just stayed and writing the same way. He would write in the voice of other great writers of the time. Like he would be, let me write about this subject as Jefferson would write about it, or let me write about this as Madison.
Wow.
Right? To change his way of.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, pretty great. So I've been writing all my stand-up like you.
But that's a good idea. But don't you think when you start stand-up, you do write in a voice of the people you like?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually did it when I read it about a month ago, and I actually sat down. I was working on this bit and about nature, how Mother Nature hates us now and is coming after us.
Right.
And I wrote it as Bernie Mac. I wrote it as Brian Regan.
Wow.
And it was pretty interesting. You can kind of like get into their rhythm.
That's really interesting. And did you try that on stage?
No, then I just
Why not? That's part of the part 2 of the experiment is the experiment itself.
I felt weird like going up there and talking as Bernie Mac.
But you have to talk as I'm saying, talking back as you now with that rhythm and material, like those jokes. Did you get to use them or no?
Yeah. What I pulled
and
something
are they
out.
working?
Yeah, they are working.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
I like that kind. Well, maybe that's what the show should be. The energy force. What Ben Franklin did with language. I'll say, why don't you people try looking at some of our enemies in their voice? And then go to a Russian accent. I come to America. I want to nuclear you. And it was like, wow, he really hit a deep point there.
I want to nuclear you.
I want a more nuclear you. Yeah, but it is interesting. I mean, what do people always say?
Yeah.
Nobody can ever really see anybody else's side. Once you get into an energy,
yeah,
where you're like, that's it. Don't, and
right.
your frown goes down and people get in. And you know, they always say how you observe things changes the actual thing of it. What's that theory called? Where you observe things.
Right.
And your attitude when you're observing things changes the actual physical thing. I forget what it's called. It's like some principle.
So me observing, give me an example.
Like if you're observing, like if you're sitting there with your kid, I mean, I don't even know if this is true.
Okay.
But this is I forget what it's called, but it's if you're observing your kids.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking nervous, you're giving off a nervous energy like, don't fall.
Right.
Don't fall.
Uh-huh.
I won't say the kids' names because, you never know. There's all kinds of serial killers around this world. Don't fall. And then one of your sons or daughters, Tom, falls on some street in a major city.
Right.
Doesn't matter where. And you know what I'm saying?
You've made it happen.
Like your energy has helped create it to happen.
Right.
That's what I mean.
I believe that.
So,
like whenever my wife or husband says to the kids, "Are you sick? Are you getting sick?"
Well, that's definitely true.
Right.
I mean, that stuff is the verbal stuff is a whole other rank. But yeah. But I'm saying not even not speaking it, just wondering if they're sick.
Right.
But if you say, "Oh yeah, that verbal stuff is all true."
Right.
How many people I've had so many friends in my life that if you saw them over there, and I remember not realizing what their problem was. I'm talking about, I had a friend that was like the big, handsome kid, like just popular guy. And his whole life, he only surrounded himself with people, little pipsqueak people that would call him a loser and call him. I was like, first of all, he could have snatched any one of them and killed them. Second of all, every girl was throwing themselves at him. This guy was like a star, a star, just a person. But I mean, and he always wanted to be around that because it reminded him of his childhood, his comfort.
Interesting.
Sitting there eating his cereal as a little kid, you're a loser. And he would surround himself with all these people. And I was like, what are you doing? You should beat his brains in and you should be banging her.
Right.
And he's like, he's like, he sort of knew it too. He wasn't totally out of it.
Do you have a real confidence when you go into these projects? And I know just from walking around talking to you as it's getting closer. And I can actually feel your energy gaining momentum. And you're like, no, you go from like, I'm working this out, I'm really working, I'm hard. And then when you get close, it's like, no, I'm putting the show up. No, I'm going with the show. No, I'm ready to go with the show. And it's just like there's a momentum that is coming up. Is that just a natural thing in you, or do you conjure it up with affirmations?
No, I honestly feel that if I do all the work, like halfway through this show, everybody was kind of coming. The people that saw it were kind of like, "Hey, man, it's good. It's a good idea." Like, but everybody gets nervous for you because it's like stand up.
Right.
It's like it's not working. It's like a stand up bit. It's not working. You have to be the only thing we have is you have to be totally like, guess what? I'm the one. I'll be up there alone.
Right.
If I don't believe in this, if I don't really do the work and then believe it's all I got, it's all my work is there. You know what I mean? Like, it's all I got. So if it doesn't work, I don't have any regrets.
Right.
Because I know that was everything I had. It's it'll be embarrassing. It's humiliating when you do your best work and it fails.
Right.
But guess what? Too bad. I'd rather do that. So I get into a space where it starts to work, and then I'm like, I start to feel confident when I start seeing it work.
Right.
If it fails, I'm in that other mode where I'm in early on, where I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
So it's not like
But you're aware of it.
I don't kid myself, but it's like, once I start getting laughs at the comedy clubs with little bits about the Constitution, I'm like, if that worked there, out of context, this has to be all right,
Yeah.
But also it's like you have to commit. You have to put both feet in. Like if I went up the night you saw me, any night, it's the same as stand-up.
Yeah.
If you go up any night and you're like, hey, guys, you'll make this decision for me, I'm kind of tentative. You're dead.
Right.
You have to go up there and go, look, this is it. This is hilarious. And if it fails, you were in there both feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't be, it's not for the,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of times when you see comedians go up and it's like they don't have the confidence and the conviction in what they're saying.
Right.
And you almost have to walk up there as, I've got this opinion, and there is no wiggle room. I'm not asking for you whether this is right. This is how it is.
Yeah. Even if your opinion is about how you don't understand, there should be wiggle room.
Right.
Even if your opinion is that, you've got to say it. You've got to really believe everything you say. It has to be right. It has to be important.
And that's an energy thing too.
Total energy.
Because then you're bringing an energy to that room, and all of a sudden
is an energy thing like nothing else.
Yeah.
Because we both know guys that have nothing material-wise.
Right.
I've known in my whole career guys that bring very few jokes.
Yeah.
Much less jokes than a guy that has great jokes. And they kill every night. They bring it.
Right.
They bring that energy.
Yeah. No. And then you have guys with great jokes who are just kind of like.
Yeah, they go up there and they just basically, kind of like living and dying on the audience's opinion of each joke. Right. They got great jokes.
Yeah.
And they just ruin themselves. They won't move around. And they get stuck in a space.
Yeah.
Physically, too, where they're just standing there. You know what I mean?
No, it's interesting because when you see what's happening to stand-up and the people are cranking out a lot more material now, that people are...
Right.
Because there's so many outlets to put your stuff out there, people are cranking out... Louis was a big part of it, too.
I was going to say, it was Louis. Louis got everybody's...
He really got everybody
He put a
working.
fire on everybody's head.
Right, exactly. Because before Louis, it was really... Carlin was the only guy that would crank out an hour every couple.
That's right.
And then Louis was like, no, this is the way that it should be done.
Right.
And everybody else just started saying, well, we should be doing it too.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And started jumping on it. Do you think that there are enough good guys to do it that way?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I think that forcing this to happen, there's going to be more and more. Yeah.
Right.
I feel that, I feel it's one of those things. It's where people just, I think there's a lot of, put it this way. I think a lot of people, if you decide to do that work, we both know it's like everything else. Everything takes everything you got.
Yeah.
Everything you do takes all your energy, no matter
Right.
what it is.
Yeah.
Whatever your job is. And it's like, so it's the same thing. If you want to do it or you want to play games,
Right.
you get left behind maybe. Or
Yeah.
you don't. But I mean, who knows? But I mean, but to really, these days, you need to be out there doing it.
Yeah.
You can't play games.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
There's too many people that grew up on comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's too many people that understand that. There's too many people that watch of stand-ups.
Yeah.
These young stand-ups, they're not just funny stand-ups. They're watching They
Right.
grew up watching YouTube. They watch everybody. Watch Comedy Central.
Yeah.
They know everything. I mean, there's some more comedy fans now.
Yeah.
So you can't play games. You can't cheat the way you could cheat like in the 80s or early 90s.
Right. Exactly.
You better bring something,
Yeah. But do you think that people cranking out at an hour in 1 year, I mean, it's kind of a silly question to ask you because you've already done it. But, there was times when your jokes get better after 3 years.
Yes.
Get better
Yeah.
after 4 years.
No, I'm not saying this. It doesn't have to be a specific time limit on anybody.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
you'll know when you start to go, okay, wait a minute. You've been doing that joke for a long time. You know what I mean?
And it's not changing.
When you have to change,
Right.
You change administrations as you're doing the same joke about the same people. You're like, and there's new administrations, they know better than the old. And then you go into your bit from 8 years ago.
Right.
Where you're like, I'll tell you the truth, I can't believe they're doing Anchorman 2. I was just watching Anchorman 1 the other day. What about that one scene? It's like, hey, that was 8 years ago.
Right. What is your routine now? How do you handle, you've got the show. I'm always impressed because whenever I would do a play back in my days in college, whenever you have big shows and you're running, do you have a routine now, or can you kind of, now that you're locked in, you can be casual and screw around and do what you want to do during the day? Or do you have like, all right, I got to take a nap by 3, then I eat at 6, and then I'm up on stage? Or are you kind of loosey-goosey with it?
Yeah, loosey-goosey.
Yeah?
Well, it is because we're used to performing every night of our stupid lives, so it's not not different from stand-up. I mean, what did we do before stand-up? You like to have a minute to collect yourself.
Right.
But you don't really need much more time when you're a stand-up,
Right.
Because it's like anything else. Your body is trained that when you go up, you lock in.
Right.
So it's not, it's not a play. I'm not acting.
Right.
It's stand-up to me. So I'm saying,
Yeah.
you got to hit your marks, but it's the same energy. We're at the cellar yapping to each other.
Right.
And you got to go on. The only key warning, which is a stand-up thing too, speaking of energy, is, and I saw it for 100 years, if you're really funny at the table before you go on and you're throwing out all this energy and being really funny and loud, you go on stage, you bomb because you did something at the table that you left there.
Right.
You have to keep before you go on, you have to keep a little quiet time,
That's true.
And get your thoughts in your head,
Yeah.
You
No,
need a
it's
couple
really
of minutes
true.
to really, that's why everybody's about to go on, goes downstairs in that corner outside.
Yeah, just for a second.
Because you need to get your thing.
Yeah.
You got to bring something to this crowd. You can't be like coming from yapping and then you got nothing left.
Yeah. Who impresses you right now, other than myself?
Stand-up wise?
Yeah.
A lot of everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody. I feel like stand-up, I feel like there's so much potential. I feel like everybody needs a wake-up call all the time, but I mean, there's so much potential. And I feel like every time I watch some stand-up or talk to a stand-up, I'm like, wow, so many funny people.
Yeah.
But nobody, people get depressed. People get into a rut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People get into a habit. People just don't care.
Yeah.
Because you know how we're like, every stand-up is like, wow, my God, that's a great new bit. You're like, yeah, but I can't get a TV show. Yeah, and legitimately feel like that. I understand it.
Yeah.
But it's still, you're watching somebody who's got something really special.
Yeah.
And if they would just, keep working that,
Yeah.
they still won't get a TV show, but they will continue to, you know what I mean? But
it's interesting. I see like a lot of guys that are around in New York that I started with or started before me, and they don't have a TV show or whatever going on. But there's a lot of guys that right now I see are at the top of their game.
Yes.
They're all getting really, really
Yes.
good. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you're like just exactly what you're saying. They're kind of grumbling and kind of you feel
of
like
course.
the clock ticking or whatever, but they couldn't be better artistically than they are right now.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing,
Yeah. I guess what's the key then? Just to be self-aware that you have a great thing that you're dealing with.
Can
Can they lift you out of those doldrums?
Yeah, well, I mean, the key. Yeah, one of the keys is to really understand that, like, the only thing that's ever gonna make you happy is your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like whatever form that takes.
Right.
So, I totally believe me. I am those people. I understand all the bitterness. Totally. I totally believe it to this moment. But it doesn't translate into anything tangible for you. So it's in a way it's irrelevant. Even though I stand behind it 100%.
Yeah. Are you? Do you think that you'll be able to do this energy show without taking martial arts, or are you going to have to take martial arts?
Well, I don't want to have to study for long hours,
Right.
So I'd like to, if there's any martial arts instructors listening that are master energy guys, I'll sit with you. I just don't, if it involves like, and now we're going to, punch the brick wall for 8 hours to strengthen our hands. It's like, listen, that's when I was like 12, I would do that. But now I need somebody who's like, look, here's the magic, and you meditate and think about it for a couple hours, and then suddenly I'm flinging birds. Start with flinging birds, small rats across a room, and then eventually small people, babies, up until like 12-year-olds, and then adults.
You're a good rat finder. Whenever you and I walk out of the comedy club and back to my apartment, you always you have a rat sensor about you.
The rats are the plague of life. I dream about them all the time. They say
Do you really?
Well, they say it's your unconscious rats, but I feel like in my case, I'm dreaming about rats because I'm obsessed with rats. If I could, in an ideal world, I would be one of those idiots at the dump that just shoots rats. That would be my hobby, if I could have a hobby.
Are you still meditating?
Yes.
You are?
Yeah.
Has it changed you?
I don't think so, but maybe.
I
don't feel like it. I mean,
it helped.
Maybe it has. It's hard to tell with meditation.
Yeah, it's
definitely
cumulative.
I definitely can survive well on less sleep. But not that much less, because you're like, oh yeah, so I slept only 6.5 hours, right? And so 40 minutes was meditation, where I was half asleep. So really, it was 7 hours, which is about what I used to get anyway.
Right. I'm just spreading it out.
Yeah. So it's hard to tell.
Right.
What's a nap? What's meditation?
It's true. It really is true.
It's a weird line, but
every time I'd say I'm meditating, my wife's like, when I'm telling people, I meditate, my wife's in the back going, I call it a nap.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, this was really great, Colin. I appreciate you coming in bright
Tom.
and early. And I hope we've gotten the word out. Everybody's got to go see Colin's new show, Unconstitutional, off-Broadway at the Brower Street Theater. You can get tickets online. He's cranking it out. It's the funniest show you'll see all season.
Thanks. And it's not a command like you have to go see it, but it kind of is.
No, you have to go see it. Get off your lazy ass. Come into New York and go see a great show. You'll be better for it. You'll laugh your ass off.
You'll learn a little about the Constitution, too.
Yeah. Go to ColinQuinnOnConstitutional.com. You can find it any place online. And don't let Colin off the hook. Stand up at the stage door after and be like, yo, where's my spaghetti?
Ah!
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, Tom.
Come to Papa.